Welcome back to the Many Toys Of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters. And this time around, it's time to talk about the Autobot communications officer that can never quite escape the shadow of his main rival. It is time for the Many Toys of Blaster. Before we begin, a big thank you to Chustifer5018, Botshots, Zangle Z Kangle, Rollout24, Left Tide 4037, Flames Reviews and Mucks, Jake Cully 9173, Orion Prime 127, The Bulbasaur Guy 5563, Just a Piece of Junk, Sir Roxy, Lord Chapel Seed 791, Devilish Boy, and OB Productions 1284. I need to give an especially big thank you to Roxy, Chappelle, Boy, and Productions, as those four have been going to bat for Blaster day in and day out for weeks, if not months, and I only hope that this video will be worth the wait. In G1, Blaster is very similar to characters like Grimlock and Shockwave, in that they are radically different depending on if you're reading the comic or watching the cartoon. In the comic, Blaster was something of a stone-cold badass, one of the greatest warriors Cybertron has ever produced, someone who could go foot to foot, nose to nose with any Decepticon and probably come out on top, someone who would be able to fight Grimlock hand to hand for leadership of the Autobots. He was truly something special. It was amazing to see this one lone gun Autobot who still knew what was right and what was wrong. The thing that held him back was ineffective leadership. When he was stationed on Cybertron underneath Perceptor, he was a pretty bad soldier. Not because he wasn't doing what was needed, but because he wasn't doing what he was told. Perceptor's ego and general hesitation to take action led to Blaster chafing more often than not. In the Marvel comic, you see Blaster continue to be not exactly a lone wolf, but definitely a soldier who marches to the beat of his own drum. He does what he thinks is right when he wants to do it, and he won't be constrained by protocol, regulation, or orders. It made him one of the more interesting Autobots under the Budiansky run, and one of the most beloved Autobots from Marvel in general. It's also very different to how he was in the cartoon. In the cartoon, Blaster was more just a party animal. He was fun-loving, lighthearted, and always up for a good conversation. He hung out with Trax a ton, and generally speaking, he was played more as comedic relief. That's not to say he wasn't also an impressive soldier. He was able to go up against Megatron, Astrotrain, and Soundwave on fairly regular basis and still come out on top in his own way. In fact, Blaster had a rivalry with Soundwave in the cartoon that never manifested in the comic. That's important because nowadays, Blaster's almost defined by his relationship with Soundwave and how they contrast. I will say, I think a lot of people have flanderized Blaster into thinking that he's something of a burnout, when in truth, the cartoon goes to great lengths to make it clear that Blaster might be a lighthearted guy, but when the going gets tough, he is more than able to hold his own. So much so that in Season 3, he's the city commander. He's the one left in charge of Autobot City because Ultra Magnus is off-planet being second in command to Rodimus. I want you to actually think about this. When Rodimus and Magnus aren't on Earth, Blaster is in control of all the Autobots stationed there, including Metroplex, their most powerful warrior. That speaks to the growth Blaster had as a character. I don't think it was intentional, but there was something of an arc that you can see. And in that way, I'd actually argue Cartoon Blaster and Comic Blaster are far more similar than you might think. With how important Blaster the character is, it's only fitting that his toy turned out as well as it did in 1985. G1 Blaster is, by a modern perspective, pretty simple. He doesn't have the most articulation, or the most paint, or the most sculpted detail, but in terms of G1, Blaster is one of the better toys you could have possibly gotten. Not only is he one of the tallest toys in the entire toy line, but he is very well sculpted and well painted for the day. He has more articulation than the vast majority of Transformers. His gun has a unique sculpting that is iconic in its own right. And of course, he's able to make use of the cassettes, one of the best gimmicks not only in G1, but in Transformers in general. Blaster is a great toy. Simple by today's standards, yes, and perhaps not as impressive as his contemporary Soundwave, but still one of the better Autobots and one of the best toys that you could have picked up this year. Blaster would get a lot more love in 1986, including a re-release of the 1985 toy, now with a slightly different plastic for his buttons. Kabaya would put out a model kit of Blaster. Decoy Blaster would have a ton of releases. Not only would he be in the Cybertron Hero Collection 22, but he would also have a single release in a Gashapon set, and he would be put out by the Takara Company 7 in their Keisha molds. Popping over to the US, Decoy Blaster would be re-released, this time packaged alongside the Throttlebots, the Aerialbots, the Protectobots, or the Technobots. There would be a pretty big status quo change in 1987 when Blaster died. In the Headmasters anime, Blaster and Soundwave killed each other during a fight in the Arctic. Soundwave's cassettes were able to rebuild him into Sound Blaster, whereas the Autobots transferred Blaster's life force into a new body called Twincast. Twincast is the same G1 toy, now sporting a very different deco, but I honestly still enjoy it. The white and blue look really nice together. Spiraling into 1999, Blaster would be included in the Action Master line. Here, he's actually very heavily based off his Marvel appearance with the nose guard, and he came with a jetpack. Blaster is one of the better Action Masters. Granted, it would have been great if he had elbow articulation, but in terms of the sculpting, the painting, and the overall presentation, I really like this Blaster. Blaster's final G1 toy came out in 1991, when the Australian Classics line re-released the original Blaster toy. Blaster would completely skip over the Beast era and the Unicron trilogy before coming back in 2005 as a Binaltech Asterisk figure. This was a repaint of Skids from the Alternators line, and it doesn't really work. Maybe the car should have been yellow? Because if it was yellow, at least then the main torso would be yellow and then the red arms would be there. It might look a little bit more like Blaster, but because you chose to make the car silver, it just doesn't look like him. It honestly works better as Senator Crosscut than it ever will work as Blaster. But it's okay, my friends, because in 2006 we would have a return of an old friend. G1 Blaster was reissued in the Transformers collection, and this time he was packaged alongside Steeljaw. That same year you could have gotten the collector's edition Twincast and Flip Sides. 2008 would be an odd year for Blaster, but a good one in that it would be the first time that he'd get multiple releases that weren't just the G1 mold again. For one, you could get the Robot Heroes Blaster, a very cute figure that was packaged alongside Thrust. You also could have gotten the Universe Blaster. This is a repaint of Cybertron Soundwave. Cybertron Soundwave is already a somewhat divisive boy, just due to how different he is. I enjoy it. I like the general aesthetic for the Planet X Cybertronians from Cybertron, and alongside that, I think that Blaster honestly wears the mold a little bit better. Soundwave looked good, but he could be drab with just how blue he was. Blaster's colors of the yellow, the red, and the gray, it actually makes the mold look a little bit better to my eye. There'd be a couple of interesting releases in 2010, like the Universe Blaster. This is the redeco of the G1 Blaster that includes Ramhorn, Steeljaw, and Eject. The real interesting Blaster this year was the Device Label Blaster. He actually transforms into a licensed laptop, and then when he's in robot mode, he can fit his cassettes in his chest. Granted, only in the robot mode. Do not try to transform him while the cassettes are there, you will break them. Blaster is interesting here. Admittedly, the Device Label guys aren't amazing toys. They're a lot more just curiosities, things that you look at and go, huh, that's interesting. In that way, I think that Blaster's one of the better ones. Oh, look at that, it's 2012, it's another goddamn G1 Blaster reissue, but this time at least it's Twincast. And hey, Night Stalker and Stripes, they're around. You guys remember Stripes? That said, my favorite Blaster of the year has to be the Generations Follow Cybertron Blaster. Though he never appeared in the games, I absolutely adore this remold. I will say, I wasn't a big fan of Soundwave getting a Voyager. The toy was incredible, but he had already gotten a really good deluxe toy for War for Cybertron. There were so many Fawk characters that never got a toy that it almost felt redundant to get another Soundwave. Even though Blaster wasn't in the games, at least he fits the aesthetic, and that was more important to me, that we were filling out the world of War for Cybertron more on our toy shelves. Blaster is incredibly well articulated, his transformation's to die for, I love his vehicle mode, and in robot mode, I like his colors a ton. Beige pants, orange shirt, yellow chest, it's all I can ask for. Admittedly, Steeljaw is pretty weak. There were much better cassettes that came out in this generation's line, but he is a pack-in accessory. I can accept that the weakest one is the one that came with the big guy. Falling into 2013, you'd be able to get the Takara Tomy release of Blaster. He is much more cartoon accurate, but I'll be honest, I think I preferred the beige to the silver on this guy. In the G.I. Joe and the Transformers Epic Conclusion box set, you'd be able to get Autobot Blaster. This is a non-transforming boombox and is an accessory to your G.I. Joes. In all honesty, that's a pretty good use for Blaster. That said, the most important thing to happen to Blaster this year was his inclusion in Shattered Glass. I want you guys to think about this. This is the only character of Blaster not related to a G1 continuity to be released so far. He's not appeared anywhere else aside from glorified cameos here or there. In Shattered Glass, Blaster is a maestro, a conductor. He speaks with an exaggerated German accent, and he focuses on perfection. Everything down to the tiniest microscopic detail had to be right. And if it wasn't, he would destroy everything and start from scratch. You'd be able to get Shattered Glass Soundwave fighting Shattered Glass Blaster in an E-Hobby exclusive box set. This is a repaint of the G1 toy, and I honestly think that it wears the colors well. It's not as poppy as either Blaster or Twincast, but it's so different that there's no mistaking it for anyone else. A good repaint all around. Alright, we've covered a few Blasters so far, and we've got quite a few more to go, but why don't we pump the brakes and change the station to see what other Blasters might be on the airwaves right now. Now, the first third-party Blaster I remember coming across was the Unique Toys Sound Mixer. Admittedly, Unique Toys was very much going for their own aesthetic here. It's kinda classics, kind of IDW, very much its own flavor. And I do enjoy the general design. That said, the plastic quality isn't the best. Unfortunately, there are multiple points of breakage with this figure. A toy that I'm still absolutely enamored with is the KFC EV Metal Transistor. Transistor was KFC's single best toy in my opinion, an amazing masterpiece blaster. That said, the design was great, the transformation was great, the articulation was great, the appearance was great. This blaster is fragile. KFC always had problems, especially when it came to quality control. And unfortunately with Blaster, a lot of the issues come in his hands, his elbows, and his shoulders. Just like Unique Toys, this is a wonderful toy, you just have to be careful. Of course, these days, most people would probably go and grab the Deformation Space Recording Alliance. This Blaster is actually incredibly solid and looks amazing. He is great. It's almost like he stepped right off the cartoon. There's just one issue with him. Transformation. Massive pain in the ass. Don't get me wrong, that's kind of Deformation Space's whole thing. Beauty comes at a cost, and that cost is transformation steps that go into the hundreds. He's not as bad as the Seekers. No one will ever be as bad as the Deformation Space Seekers. But Blaster is still a little bit difficult, especially if you don't have a guide on hand. So with a lot of the Masterpiece Blasters, I'm having to give a lot of caveats. Talk about fragility or how complicated they are. Thankfully, that doesn't exist for the Legend Scale Blasters. The Magic Square Blaster is such a good toy. Just a good, chewy feeling figure with great little cassettes, awesome plastic quality, and even though I don't think he's quite as good as Soundwave, he is still a very nice toy. That said, I think that the best third-party blaster has to be New Age. I'm sorry. New Age is always going to be a contender for the best. The painting is incredible, the sculpting is incredible, the overall design work is without equal. I think there are times where New Age even outdoes Katara Tomy in knowing how to capture these characters. I will say, it's also great that you have options. You can go for the cartoon blaster, or the comic blaster, or toy blaster, or shattered glass blaster. if you are looking for a blaster and you're okay with Legend Scale, I'd honestly tell you, go pick up one of these new age guys. Well, that was fun. I'm always a big fan of indie music, but why don't we go back and listen to what the studios are putting out with 2015's Masterpiece Blaster. And by Masterpiece Blaster, I mean the little boombox that came with Masterpiece tracks. But hey, if you got Road Rage, it came in blue. There was also a Creo Blaster that came in the Creon class of 85, a pretty solid minifigure, all things considered. Platinum Edition also re-released G1 Blaster. I'm sorry, I love Blaster. It doesn't help that almost all his toys are G1, but the fact that it's not just most of them are G1 design, but most of them are literally just re-releases of the G1 toy. Blaster, you need to get a better agent, man. You need to get a new album out there. The Peoples need a new hot single. Oh, thank God. In 2016, we got the Titans Return Blaster, and he is a very different flavor of Blaster. Do not get me wrong. He's a massive leader class figure, very much based on the original toy, but I kind of love him because of how different and weird he is. As a boombox, look at this. I've never seen a boombox look quite like that, but you just know that the subwoofers on this thing would go crazy. And even better, he turns into what is basically a stage for Micromasters to play on, and then he's able to form the robot mode. And in robot mode, he's articulated, decently well painted, very well sculpted, a good blaster from head to toe that can't be confused for any other blaster. That's all I needed from you, Blaster. Just a way to show me that you didn't completely sell out, that there's still some originality left in your bones, baby. This same year, Takara Tomy would put out the Legends Blaster, a better painted version of the toy, and it's just beautiful. It is, it's absolutely gorgeous! There was also the Tiny Titans Blaster this year, which I think is very cute, even though it looks like he has a massive forehead. Blaster would take a couple years off after that before coming back in 2020. He would be in the Reaction line, a 3 3/4 inch non-transforming blaster, and hey, if you needed a modern version of the Action Master, this might be your guy. There was also a re-release of the G1 Blaster toy exclusive to Walmart. Come on, man, we just got away from this. It's okay, Blaster totally redeemed himself in 2021 with his Kingdom release. And I love this guy. I know that for many people he's been replaced by the SS-86, but I still prefer Kingdom Blaster. I like his more dull color scheme. The gray face, the gray legs, it makes him feel a little bit more war-torn. It helps that this blaster has an incredible transformation, a very well done boombox mode, and in robot mode, look at him, he's just perfect. Even better, he comes with eject. Now granted, eject is made out of translucent plastic, I am not a big fan of that, but it's nice that he came with one of his partners. 2022 would be a pretty eventful year for Blaster. For one, you could get the Minimates version of him. Kingdom Blaster would be repackaged in the first wave of Legacy. And finally, Kingdom Blaster would be repainted into Shattered Glass Blaster. And I love how grody this guy looks. Especially when he's the boombox, this feels like an evil robot that would go up against the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Spiraling into 2023, you could have gotten a boombox blaster as an accessory in the Super 7 Ultimates Trax figure. There was also Legacy Twincast. This guy is great, the colors still look amazing, and even better, they gave him a little smirk. I kind of wish that Blaster had that smirk, but hey, it makes Twincast stand out a little bit more. That gets us to 2024 and our 3 final blasters. But we gotta start off with the Retro Blaster, which was just G1 Blaster again. But hey, Studio Series 86 Blaster was here, and he was just Kingdom Blaster again. At least they got the gray on his tape deck this time? Oh no. You know we're in dicey waters when the Funko Pop is the most exciting thing that happened to Blaster this year. And that's it. Blaster is like the ultimate utility player in Transformers. He doesn't need many media appearances. God knows he's not had many since G1. But he's always around. He's there if you need a repaint of Soundwave. He's there if you need to re-release a G1 toy. He's there if you need to pop the crowd. I mean, for God's sake, he made it into that Chip and Dale movie. Optimus Prime wasn't even in that movie. Blaster got into the Chip and Dale Disney Plus movie. I like to think that Blaster has this hidden connection to the fans, that he's this Autobot perpetually trapped in G1, and that made him special, and I think that honestly is a part of it. The fact that he's never come forward, the fact that he was so important back then, but has never really made that much of a name for himself outside G1, gives him something of a sense of purity. There's this idea that he's not had to go through many other continuities. There's not as many blasters running around, possibly making us tired of him, or making us confused as to who he is. I think people who are really in love with Blaster probably have a lot of the same feelings about him that I have about my beloved Beast Wars cast. I love my Beast Wars cast because most of them have never come back. And those that have, they've only had a few appearances. So they've been able to keep a very high quality level in terms of their stories and who they are as characters. The low point of the Beast Wars cast is probably the Kingdom show, and even that isn't terrible, it's just kind of boring. I think Blaster has had a very similar fate. He's popular enough to be remembered, he's popular enough to get new toys, but he's not been put into a disappointing cartoon. He's not been put into the Bayverse. He's not had to be in an ultra try-hard edgy story. There's something about Blaster that's allowed to remain wholesome and fun. He's not had to endure overexposure. No one's tired of Blaster. I know I made jokes about how tired I was of his G1 toy being reissued, but I even think that's a part of it. That's who Blaster still is. He is this look back at what G1 used to be, for both the silliness and the kind of deep, serious storytelling of the Marvel comic. I think Blaster should take pride in the fact that he's only ever really been in G1, because it allows him to encapsulate so much of that era and how they wrote the characters. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Blaster, and is there a Blaster you're trying to track down right now? We are still trying to collect money to help Lee in his battle with muscular dystrophy. If you are able to donate anything, please send a couple of bucks his way. Let me know, and I will give you the Patreon rewards equivalent to whatever you donated. $1 will give you access to my Discord server, Moonbase1. $5 will allow you to watch videos early and download videos directly from me. And $10 will make you a producer. You'll appear in every video I make from now on and be able to make direct Patreon requests. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully the many toys of Shattered Glass will be coming very soon. But hey, we'll have to see what we get up to next time.